If you ignore the past, the changing nature of the land, it seems these trees have been here forever, and forever could be. Yet each rises to the sun, and in its time returns to the earth. Each has a life measured on a scale larger than our own, yet still with limits. In a natural state, a tree, like a human, rarely stands alone. It lives within a community called a forest. In centuries past, people looked west and saw vast wooded lands, barriers to be broken, which they did. There is little in the landscape that remains untouched by human hands, changed to make a place for us on this planet. But by 1900, a few people began to see that the wealth of the forest lay not only in its timber. A vision was born, an idea called multiple use. It's a simple thought, really, that as a living community, the forest means many things to the people, to the planet. Our forests provide wood, water, homes to fish and wildlife, places to enjoy up close, and places to leave alone, where nature moves in its own way. Forests are, in quite a real sense, the lungs of the planet. The careful tending of these great resources is not just a matter of aesthetics or economics, but of survival. We live on the decay of ancient forests, on coal, oil, and natural gas. Unlike these resources, today's forests can be renewed in a century or even less. A tree grows, is cut, and nearby another rises. Water falls, rises, and falls again. From a forest we can take, but not too often. Again and again we can use, though not abuse, its wealth. Multiple use may be easy to say, but it takes some real knowledge of the life within the woods to make it work. For the forests are made of many connections. Each resource is bound to others. So we train people to tend these communities, to understand these connections.
Here's a tree that you've girdled. Now that girdle looks pretty good. The important thing you want to remember is you need to cut that cambial layer. You need to get all the way at least an inch inside the bark in order to kill the tree. Now down here you didn't quite get deep enough. So you need to try to get deeper on your girdle. But by killing a tree like this one, it's a real good idea because you can go ahead and release a walnut like the one over here. That's a good clean walnut, and it should really take off now that this tree isn't crowding it out anymore.
Everybody's a little different. Some people want to work with their trees for future profit, while others want to enhance wildlife, and others just want a pretty scene to look out on, with a good mix of trees and other plants. And some people want a little bit of everything. Our job is to help people get what they want from the forest, yet at the same time protect it.
And they'll green up, and that'll be something that your deer could eat for browse next summer and on into the fall. So they're actually good for wildlife.
And then also, what will happen is the weaker sprouts will die down. And then the strongest sprouts will go ahead and grow. And then when you harvest these trees around here that you've released with this timber stand improvement, then this will be your tree for the future. It'll go ahead and be the next stand.
On small private forest lands, many uses are easily blended. Owners want the pleasure of the scene, wildlife, clear streams, and some timber to harvest now and then. But the demands of society as a whole are not so easily satisfied. The resources we depend on in our everyday lives come, if not from our own backyards, then from somewhere else. State forests are part of that somewhere else. On these and other public lands, foresters must consider many needs, many uses. You can't make one forest be all things for all people, but you can make the best use of what each forest offers. One of the most obvious benefits of the forest is the wood from the trees themselves. Whether it's paper, pallets, furniture, fence posts, or fuel, our use of wood grows as the forest area declines worldwide. The challenge for foresters today is to balance new growth with cuttings.
It's 10.5.
It's been about 75 years since trees were harvested from these hills in South Missouri to fuel early industries and development. Now the hillsides are once again covered with white and red oaks, hickories, and pines. A resource in the making. This time, careless clearing will be replaced by cuttings made with a thought to the future.
You can see these big pine trees that we've left standing here. They provided the seed for all of these little seedlings that are coming up underneath here. And then the next time we inventory, then it will probably indicate these trees are big enough and they'll be harvested to release the little seedlings so they'll have full sunlight.
You plan on doing any TSI prior to that thinning, that first thing?
Probably not. We look at each forest to see what it offers. Some areas have great scenic possibilities. Some may have great timber resources. Others have unique river edges. And all are homes to different animals. We come up with a plan to decide what areas, if any, are ready to be cut. Ideally, we try to get the forest on a long rotation system. That means the final crop of trees grow to maturity, maybe 100 years or so before they're cut. And then this other drainage over here.
Now here's some hickory. Again, just little, don't have much future. I'd go ahead and take out the stand. And then next to this white oak, which is a pretty good white oak, nice full size, we've got a red oak. And you can see how it's suppressed. Even if we'd cut out another tree around it, it probably wouldn't respond because it's been suppressed for so many years. So let's go ahead and get it out of the stand. That looks pretty good right here.
The timing of cuttings and the number and types of trees taken depend on many factors. As a forest develops, thinning is done to remove weak or damaged trees or those growing too close to each other. These cuts along the way to maturity give the remaining trees the greatest growth possible by reducing competition among the plants for light and water. It speeds the natural process by which the forest matures. How big each tree can finally become depends on what species it is and where it's growing, its soil, its climate. Once it reaches maturity, the tree begins to decline. It's attacked by insects and disease, and by animals that go after the insects. When getting wood from the forest is part of the plan, the forester tries to harvest just as the main crop of trees reach maturity, before they start to decline with age and time.
When it comes time to actually harvest trees from the forest and make room for new seedlings, we can choose from several methods. It's important to remember how the trees reproduce, the soils, costs, and the overall use of the forest.
Different types of cutting encourage different trees. Taking out a single tree allows the growth of those that do well in shade. It can be more costly to do, but it keeps the uneven-aged forest in place. Removing larger numbers of trees at once, as in clear cutting, is another method. This encourages oaks and other trees that need more sunlight to compete and thrive. It's usually less expensive than removing a single tree here or there, and does less damage to trees that remain uncut. It helps wildlife, which depends on the new growth in clearings. There's a wide range of cuttings in between. Some groups of people oppose any cutting anywhere. This extreme view is a critical threat to Missouri forests. In fact, the ability to cut trees is essential to enhance and protect our forest and wildlife resources. The effects of any cutting, of course, need to be balanced with the overall uses of the forest.
Clear cutting is a bad word to some people, I guess because it's been confused with careless land clearing that was done in places that should have never been cleared or converted to pasture or cropland in the first place. It can be a good way to get certain results in an oak forest. For example, in Missouri, we may use clear cutting where we would like to continue to grow oak trees. We'll put in small sample plots and we'll look at some of these smaller oak seedlings that may be 1 year old all the way up to 8 or more years old. And once we determine that there are enough of these to assure a future stand, well, then this area is ready for our clear cutting. If a clear cut is done well, things grow back quickly, and people benefit by getting the wood they need at an acceptable price. Of course, when we cut trees in the forest, we have to take into account a number of factors. In addition to the tree itself, we have to consider the wildlife habitat effects that we might have by removing that tree, what the effects might be on the runoff of the water from the forest floor, and other factors.
Fresh water is as much a product of the forests as the trees themselves. The forest soil acts like a sponge, absorbing and holding moisture. The roots and rotting leaves slow the water's movement, filtering as it sinks into the earth and heads downslope to streams and rivers. The forest edge along streams is especially critical for keeping the waters clear. Our use of water, like our use of wood, seems to be ever on the rise. Each of us really needs only half a gallon or so a day to survive, yet Americans use about 70 gallons a day. We're putting heavy demands on the natural systems of the planet. So foresters must consider the water cycle, too, when they care for the woods. Every day we put a price tag on wood and water, two resources on which we heavily depend. Yet not everything in the forest can be calculated in dollars and cents. A forest is home to many creatures. Like our cities, each forest forms a distinct community.
When you take one thing from a forest, you have to consider its impact on everything else. If you're trying to help a bird like the ruffed grouse, for example, they need a few well-placed clear cuts to encourage young tree growth. Pileated woodpeckers, on the other hand, need a continuous forest canopy of 200 acres or more.
It's not only the overall extent of the forest, but also the types of trees within it that matter. Turkey, deer, and squirrels depend on the acorns from oaks. Birds feed on the seeds of red cedar and find shelter there from winter winds. Bats nest under tree bark, and all kinds of creatures find haven in the cavities of older trees. Along streams, overhanging branches keep waters cooler in summer and add nutrients in the form of decaying leaves. The fertile lands at the edge of streams and rivers are especially important because they can support a great variety of trees and other plants. These forests, in turn, attract and support many different animals, which depend on both the woods and the water. The life in the forest affects the pleasures found there.
Boy, you hit this weekend just right.
Yeah, sure did.
I see you got your whole family with you camping today.
Yeah, we all came down to spend the weekend camping.
Great. How often do you guys come camping? The forest is a place where all kinds of people go to have all kinds of fun. The real trick of managing a forest, though, is trying to balance all these people's needs and still protect the forest.
Look up there.
Hunters, fishermen, campers, and bird watchers all need their chance to enjoy the woods.
Yellowback, did you say?
Uh-huh.
Okay, it's a yellow-rumped warbler.
Boy, that ought to do the trick. And I like coming down here this time of the year. You pretty well got it to yourself here on this creek that runs through the forest. You can get your lures on and go out and catch a few smallmouth and make it back to the house in time for supper and cook them up. Boy, it's a great way to go.
Getting away to the woods has long appealed to the American mind. We entered a wilderness, a place almost untouched, or so it seemed to settlers centuries ago. At first, this was a land where nature loomed large, and humans, small in number, scattered into the countryside. Now much less remains that's truly wild, truly left alone. In a world of need where we survive by using the resources around us, keeping some forests wild may be the most difficult use of all. Parks are usually set aside to be wild, to let nature take its course. State or federal forests, on the other hand, are held as resources to conserve, to use wisely. Yet even within the framework of wise use, there's a place for a few wild places. Natural areas are set aside in Missouri forests because they represent distinct, largely unaltered communities of life. This old bottomland forest along an Ozark River is not cut or purposely altered, though nature itself never stands still. True wilderness is fast disappearing in this increasingly peopled planet, but for now, in some places, we still hold back the human hand. It's yet another choice of how we use this resource. There's something about standing in a forest that hushes the human spirit. It's a protective place, cool cover from the searing rays of summer, warm shelter from icy winter winds. It's a place of mystery, where you see only a glimpse now and then of the life within. A forest is an echo of the past and a hope for the future. Wood, water, wildlife, and fish, recreation and wild places. We need all these things in the world today. And if we plan their use with care, we'll find them in the forests tomorrow.